Hello, and welcome to American Sports Broadcasters. I am Kenyon Hood, along here with my partner Brian Kirkeback, and we're going to tell you about sports. What sports are we going to talk about today, Brian?
Well, we're going to first start off with college football. As you all know, this weekend is championship week. So the big topic is the college football playoff. Who's in, who's out? So right now, who's in? We got number one Clemson, got number two Alabama, got number three Oklahoma, and number four Iowa. Three of those four teams play this weekend in their conference championships. And Oklahoma is a lock. So
Why are they a lot?
well, they don't have to play a conference championship because the Big 12 doesn't have one. And with their strength of schedule, it just looks like they're going to be in there. So we're going to start with the ACC championship game. This is between Clemson and North Carolina. Clemson has wins over Notre Dame and Florida State, two ranked opponents. North Carolina, on the other hand, has a win over Pittsburgh. That's their strongest win, so not a big win. And they have a loss against South Carolina at the start of the year. So it's going to be a pretty good game, though. All right, next we're going to move on to the SEC championship game against Alabama and Florida. Alabama's only loss of the year comes to Ole Miss, which is not a very good loss, but they have good wins over Wisconsin, Georgia, LSU, and Texas A&M. Pretty strong schedule, if you ask me.
That is pretty strong.
Yeah. Now, Florida, on the other hand, has two losses to LSU and Florida State, so not bad losses. But their biggest win is over Ole Miss. And it's kind of a big win, but not very strong. Jim McElwain has done an amazing job in his first year at Florida. He took them from a team that had no chance of being in the SEC title game and now has put them in a very good spot. So now we move on to the Big Ten championship game against Michigan State and Iowa. Iowa may be undefeated, but their big wins come with Wisconsin, Northwestern, and Pittsburgh. So
And not that strong.
no, not that strong at all.
I don't think Northwestern was, I think, the only team that finished ranked.
Yes,
So-
I believe so. And then you have Michigan State on the other hand, who's has beat Oregon, Michigan, and Ohio State. So some big
But that
contenders.
big loss to Nebraska.
That is a pretty bad loss, though. So, big questions there in the Big Ten. Then we move on to the Pac-12 championship game. That comes with USC against Stanford. USC just had a dominating win over UCLA and beat Utah early in the season. But they had lost to Stanford at the beginning of the season and has also lost to Washington, Notre Dame, and Oregon. But that may be contributed to their coaching issues with Steve Sarkisian. But then you have Stanford. Big wins over USC, Notre Dame, and UCLA, but losses against Northwestern and Oregon. So that's sort of hard to say.
Sounds like both of them are fairly unpredictable.
Yeah, so it'll be definitely a really good game between the two. Some other notable games we have is a Big 12 matchup against Texas and Baylor. Now, Texas, subpar season, 4-7 right now, with their big win over Oklahoma, but losses to Iowa State, West Virginia, Notre Dame. So definitely not the season they were looking for.
But the question here is, if Texas could somehow come away with a win against Baylor, wouldn't they then be, do you think, bowl eligible? Do you think they would get a bowl?
There's a chance, but they have said that they are going to choose 5 and 7 teams based on APR, and I think that their APR is just a little too low to be considered, unfortunately. And Baylor is sort of struggling. They're on their third string quarterback already. So,
Well, I can make mention of another third string quarterback that happened to do very well last year.
that's true. That is true at Ohio State. Big deal. So, it's going to be an interesting game. So now we're going to go to our picks of the week. So we're going to start in the ACC. I feel Clemson's going to win. I don't know. Who do you have in that game?
I'm also picking Clemson here. I don't know where these Tar Heels came from. They're a basketball school. Get out of football. You don't belong here.
I mean, it's crazy where they came from. They started out the season losing to South Carolina, who ended up having Steve Spurrier retire mid-season. So they've definitely rebounded. I just feel Clemson is just it's their year. Dabo Swinney's always had good football teams, and it's about time they get some recognition.
I'm feeling it. So.
All right, now we're going to move to the SEC. And with my bold pick, I have Florida beating Alabama.
I'm also picking Florida.
Yes.
This is a hunch one for me. I'm just kind of feeling it in my gut. You know, Florida's blue, Alabama's red. I like blue better than red. Jedi's beat the Sith. If you haven't watched the movies, first of all, watch the movies. Blue's going to win.
I feel the same way, but for different reasons. Like I said, Jim McElwain has done great things at Florida. Now, Florida did have a pretty bad loss against Florida State this past week, but that's a rivalry game. Anything can happen in a rivalry game. I just feel that Alabama, they definitely are another good team this year, but I feel like their reign is over.
Great running backs, though.
Amazing
Very
running
solid
backs.
at the running back position.
They are. They have done a great job, and it's definitely going to be a good game. So definitely a game to watch this week.
Derrick Henry, number 2.
Yes.
He reminds me a lot of like a fast Eddie Lacy.
I'd have to agree with that. He's having 200+ yard games.
You gotta love this guy as a runner.
You got to. All right, now we're gonna move to the Big Ten, and I have to go with Iowa on this one.
This is where we're different. I'm going MSU. To me, Iowa just doesn't have any strong, like nearly as many strong wins as Michigan State does. And even though Michigan State lost to Nebraska, they lost to Nebraska at the very end of the game by 1 point on a play that a lot of people thought should have been overturned because the receiver was out of bounds.
That is true, but what we got to look at is Michigan State shouldn't have let Nebraska get back in on that game. And letting teams get back in a game can bite you in the end. You got to play a full game, and they just didn't. Iowa, even with a lower strength of schedule, has played full games all year, and I feel that's where they're going to benefit.
That's true. They have not made hardly any mistakes, and they are playing some pretty good football, but I'm feeling Michigan State on this one. Yeah. That's my prediction.
And it is also to note that both teams are plus 14 in the turnover margin, so it's definitely going to be
pretty solid.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an amazing game. Now we move on to the Pac-12, and in this game I have to take Stanford.
Also going Stanford.
Yeah, I mean, USC has found a good coach in their interim coach, Clay Helton. He was just appointed head coach this week, but I just feel Stanford's got this game. They got a lot to prove. And I feel they win this. They are contenders for the college football playoffs.
Contenders? They've got 2 losses there, don't they?
That's true, but they are number 7. They win this one with a couple losses up top. If Alabama were to tumble, I feel they have proven their spot after a dominant win against Notre Dame this past week.
I don't know. Alabama seems like that team that people might, even if they lose, they might still get voted in just for being Alabama. And even if Stanford gets into the playoffs, I don't know that it would be Alabama that they're replacing. I think they might. I could see beating out either Iowa or Michigan State. Whoever wins that game, I could see that happening. Oklahoma's going to get it, like you said, but I don't know.
I know it's definitely going to be interesting what happens there. Now we're going to move on to that Big 12 game that we chose, and another bold prediction coming at you. I have 4-7 Texas over Baylor.
I'm going to say you're a little bit biased, Mr. Texas fan. I'm going to go with Baylor.
This isn't about bias. Baylor's on their 3rd-string quarterback. Now Texas will be on their 2nd-string quarterback.
It's okay.
This is not bias here. Texas may be on their 2nd-string quarterback, but he's played all year. Tyrone Swoops started out the season very poorly, but has definitely rebounded and showed some promise. Texas got a lot to prove here. This is going to be another big win for Charlie Strong, something that they need to prove.
But I don't know that showing promise is good enough for right here, right now, tomorrow.
But you do have a Baylor team who is frustrated after losing some heartbreaking games lately because of injuries. Both sides of the ball will have injuries, but I feel Texas got the edge on this one.
All right, we'll come back to you next week and see how you did.
All right. So what I think will be the college football playoff after this weekend's game. So I feel Clemson will stay at number 1. Oklahoma will move up to number 2. I feel Iowa move up to 3. And I feel Stanford takes that 4th spot with the win in the Pac-12 championship game.
All right. I'd be more than happy to see Alabama drop out, but I'm not sure even if they lose that game. I don't know that it's going to happen. We'll see. We'll find out.
Yes, it'll definitely be a great week of college football.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the NFL, and I think the best place to start here is talking about that heartbreaking loss in Detroit last night.
It was definitely a rough loss.
It killed me. I'm a Lions fan. Man, it was heartbreaking. It was tough. It was really tough. But I gotta say, beginning of the second half, they did not play very well that third quarter at all. They, I think, had 5 or 6 possessions in a row that resulted in punts. They had that bad blocking job by Riley Reef that gave up a fumble on the 15, 14-yard line. That was next play Aaron Rodgers touchdown. You just can't set him up with that kind of field position.
And you can't give those advantages to a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. Even the times he's struggling, he's still a good quarterback by far.
And from most of what I've seen, it isn't so much Aaron Rodgers struggling as it is his receivers not catching the balls.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I wish Aaron Rodgers was struggling. I really do. But
yeah, and Detroit, I'm sorry to say, but on a Hail Mary, you can't play defense like Nebraska against BYU. You just can't do that. You'll lose every time.
You got to put somebody in front. But recognizing that I'm a little biased here, I don't think you can throw that flag. The referee behind Aaron Rodgers threw the face mask flag. He couldn't even see the hand being put on there. And it grazed the face mask. It didn't grab the face mask. He didn't turn the face mask. He just kind of grazed it on his way to the shoulder.
True. I mean, there may be those calls, but there were definitely some other things, missed tackles, missed opportunities that led to Green Bay coming back.
I think this is just another example, though, where I think it'd be a good idea to implement a rule where you can replay all of these penalties. Maybe not necessarily throughout the course of the whole game, but if a penalty that big at the end of the game, that's a game-deciding penalty, I think that deserves to be looked at a second time upstairs.
I would have to agree with you on that one.
All right. So, moving on from that, as difficult as it is for me, Vikings got to step up and play against the Seahawks.
And, that's one of my games to watch this week. The Seahawks are sort of on a ride here. They've won 2 straight games against the 49ers and the Steelers. 49ers may not be the best win, but the game against the Steelers was a complete and utter shootout. And Russell Wilson just proved to be on top there.
Russell Wilson, to me, is my idea of a complete quarterback.
Definitely.
He can run when he needs to. He can run when he doesn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
He can throw the ball. He can do just about everything well. And what's really interesting to me is how he started out as a 3rd-round pick behind Matt Flynn after Matt Flynn's huge game against Detroit. And then they went with him as their starter, served kind of as a role player, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He won that first Super Bowl as a guy who hands it to Marshawn Lynch and who throws it to his receivers on pretty much just short routes. And he has really evolved and taken over this offense. It has now been built around him. His contract reflects it. He just signed a big deal this year.
Yep.
I think he's the franchise guy right now.
Oh, definitely. I would have to say without him, Seattle is not where they're at today, and had the past success that they've had. So definitely a big game to watch this week.
And who are you picking in that one?
I'm going to make another bold pick. I have to go with Seattle on this one. I just feel Russell Wilson would be just too much. Teddy Bridgewater playing great, having a great year with the Vikings being 8-3, which you could have told me that a couple years back, and I wouldn't have believed you.
I don't think anyone would have believed you at the beginning of this year.
Exactly. So even though Minnesota's 4-1 at home with their only loss against the Packers, I just feel Seattle's just a little too much, and they're out there to prove something.
All right, I got to go with Minnesota on this one. To me, I think they're a more complete football team. From what I've seen, their defense it's aggressive, it's fast. They got guys just flying around out there. They make good tackles. what else can you say about the defense? They put pressure on the quarterback. They have pretty good coverage. They're just a very solid unit. And on offense, you got Adrian Peterson, who has had some issues putting the ball on the ground this year. He has. But he's still AP. Give him a big play. I think a play that really shows off the kind of thing that he and Bridgewater can have is week 2 when they were playing Detroit. I'm sorry if most of my references are coming from the Detroit game. But Teddy Bridgewater was in the process of getting sacked. He just does a little shuffle pass out to Adrian Peterson, grabs it, goes off for a 70-yard run. So those two put together, you got Teddy Bridgewater. He can also run around. He can throw the football with accuracy. He got some arm strength. He's got good receivers, too. I got to go with the Vikings here. I think they're playing with a chip on their shoulder. They've been kind of the laughing stock of the NFC, just above the Bears, really, for the last couple of years. I think that they're tired of it.
All right, well, we'll have to see after Sunday.
The other really big game this week, the Jets and the Giants. It's a New York matchup this week.
Boy.
So that one should be pretty good. You got the Giants sitting at. We have the Giants in second place in the NFC East at 5-6, and the Jets in second place of the AFC East at 6-5. So really, this is a bigger game for the Giants. If the Giants can win, it just helps them out because with the battle against the Redskins. The Redskins are also 5-6. They got a game against the Cowboys on Monday. To me, that's a lock for the Redskins without Tony Romo. I haven't seen anything for the Cowboys. So count the Redskins as really 6-6 next week. So in order for the Giants to really stay in the hunt here for that division win, they're going to need to win this game, and it should be good. They're at home. They've been kind of not that great the last couple of years either.
That's true. They may be struggling, but I still got to side with Eli Manning on this one. I feel that he'll pull it out. He's a good quarterback. It's a good team. I think they'll get this one.
They got Eli Manning, yes, but Eli Manning has kind of two phases. There's like the great Eli Manning from the Super Bowl, and there's regular season Eli Manning, who is okay, and then. Of course, they got Odell, and Odell is just a rock star.
Yes,
he is phenomenal. But I got to go with the Jets on this one. I'm just feeling it. I think it's not the Jets' year to win their division. They're behind the Patriots at 10-1. They're not going to win the division. But I'm feeling at least round 2 of the playoffs for the Jets this year. That might be a little early to say. I guess it's a bold statement, but I just think they're going to come away with it. Other pretty big games, Falcons and the Buccaneers are playing this week. It's a pretty good matchup for the NFC South and the NFC playoff race. Again, neither one of these teams is going to win their division. They got the Panthers sitting at 11-0, and I don't see anybody beating the Panthers anytime soon. So really, they're playing against a couple other people in the league. Really, count the Packers as a wild card win, at least wild card. Either the Packers or the Vikings are going to be a wild card. Okay, so count the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers as one of them is going to be in the wild card. That leaves just one wild card spot to play. Now the NFC is not a very strong conference this year. You don't have many teams over 500. You have 6 teams over 500 out of 16. So that's kind of ridiculous, really. I don't remember the last time that happened. But that just makes it. This is a huge game for the Buccaneers and Falcons. They both really need to step up, and if they want to stay in the playoff race. And I said at the beginning of the year, not for you guys because this is our first episode, but I said at the beginning of the year, watch out for the Buccaneers. They're putting some pieces together on defense. You got Levante David. You got George Johnson coming in from Detroit. You're really strengthening your defense, and they did a couple other moves, but they're really getting better on offense. They picked up Jameis Winston. Struggled a little bit early on, but he's coming into the NFL, the toughest league in sports, in my opinion. So you're going to have some adjustment period. I think as a rookie to be playing as well as he is pretty uncommon. And then they're building the receiving core. They got a great running back in Doug Martin.
For sure.
Rushed for over 200 yards, I believe, against Philadelphia. And granted, they're Philadelphia, but I'm feeling the Buccaneers in this one. I'm saying they take it and go 6-6.
I'd have to also go with the Bucks. Like we sort of said, Jameis Winston better, whether or not you like him because of things he may do off the field, he's a great player. He's doing great as a rookie. I just feel he's going to take the Bucks to the victory here.
All right. Another big game is the Chiefs and the Raiders. They're tied right now in the AFC West. It's 6-5, right behind the Broncos at 9-2. Well, maybe not right behind the Broncos. So they're not going to win the division at this point. But speaking of, let's talk about the Broncos for a little bit.
All right, yeah.
Okay. Peyton Manning is Peyton Manning comes up this year and gets you to 6-0, and then they lose and he sits and.
Yep.
Partially, I read that some of it was just due to some minor nagging injuries, so that he would be feeling good in the playoffs when they get there. But now it's starting to look like, is he going to play in the playoffs?
It's definitely hard to say, but I mean they're doing just fine without him. Knocking off the Patriots, that was huge.
Osweiler has done a really good job coming in and just getting it done. He's finding ways to win ball games.
And I mean, it may be too early to say, but I think the Broncos are lucking out here, because who knows how much longer Peyton's in the league. Maybe they have found their next quarterback for a while. It's maybe a little early to say, but at least he's keeping them up there.
He is, and a lot of it is not just because of Osweiler.
Right.
You have a phenomenal defense in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
They are really, really good. Those guys are fast. They're strong.
Mm-hmm.
They put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Great coverage.
Sure.
It's tough to find fault with that defense.
It is.
But back to the Chiefs and Raiders. The Chiefs they're going on a bit of a roll here. They got off to a bad start, but it's looking like they might be ready to turn the page.
Yep, and another positive thing for them is they haven't had a turnover in the last couple of games. That was something that really hurt them early on, especially hurt them against their game during the Broncos early in the season. Jamal Charles couldn't hold on to the ball, so definitely a great thing that they're getting those turnovers fixed.
Yeah, and then you got the Raiders, who are finding kind of a resurgence this year. They're finally coming out of being a 4-win team, a 5-win team. They're finally starting to turn the page a little bit. They really like their young quarterback, Carr, and I don't really see what's like so far.
I know it's definitely going to be a really good game between those two. There's a lot to win in that game. So it'll be a very interesting game.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Chiefs on this one. Even though it is out in Oakland, let me just make sure it's out. Yeah, it is out in Oakland, but I'm going to go ahead and pick the Chiefs. I think they're feeling really hot right now, and I think they're tired of not being in the playoffs. I think they're ready to go back.
Okay, I got to agree with you. Like I said, just that turnover thing is definitely a big thing for me. I feel that the Chiefs run with this game unless they have turnover issues, so I have to go with the Chiefs.
All right. Probably the last really big game coming up is going to be the Texans and Bills. And it's questionable how big this is. You're not going to know how big this game is for a couple of weeks, really. Well, it's big for the Texans, but for the Bills, you don't know how big it'll be. We'll find out. For the Texans, they're 6-5. They're tied for first in the AFC South with the Colts, and the Colts has not been the really strong team everyone expected them to be. Andrew Luck has been playing very subpar, I think, so far this year, and which is terrible because I have him on my fantasy team.
Wow.
So I don't know. I picked him first round, picked Tom Brady 9th round. So I mean, it's worked out.
Yeah, it's worked out for you. It's definitely worked out for you.
Yeah. So Texans need a win here. If they can win here, they're going to be on top of their division. The Colts are playing the Steelers this week. I think the Steelers are going to come out with that one. Just try to stop Antonio Brown. That's all I got to say about that. And so with the Colts loss, that'll put them at 6-7. If the Texans win, 6-6. If the Texans win, they're at 7-5. So they would move up in the AFC South. But the Bills, on the other hand, they're behind the Jets, and they've been kind of all over the place this year. The Texans have won 4 straight. It's tough to give this one to the Bills. They've won 2 in a row. They've lost 2 in a row. They've had high expectations, and they've gone back to just being another mediocre team in the NFL. So should be a pretty interesting game to watch, though, I think. So I want to make the bold prediction and say the Bills come away with it at the Texas Rangers, at Houston, and might not be. At home. They're playing at home. The Bills are at home. I'm giving it to the Bills. I'm feeling it. It's maybe not the intellectual choice, but it's a bold prediction. It's what I got.
Yeah, on this one, I have to go with the Texans. I just feel, definitely they have something more to prove. And in a lot of games, I really can't side with Rex Ryan. I don't think he was the best choice for them. I don't think he's going to turn them necessarily around like they expected. I have to give this one to the Texans.
All right. So that pretty much wraps up this weekend. But next Thursday, since we're not going to have an episode out before then, next Thursday, the Vikings are playing the Cards. Now, obviously, we don't know what all the playoff stuff is going to look like right now, but pretty good chance, I think, of the Cards being 10-3 there, and because they're playing the Rams this week. Rams are a decent team, but not. They're better than they were last year. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah.
They're better than they were last year.
Yes.
But so put them at 10-2, and then you have the Vikings coming in, I think, at 9-3 off of a big win in Seattle.
I'm gonna say 8-4,
but we'll see. Either way, it's a huge game for the Vikings, at least. Not as big for the Cardinals, but I think the Vikings are going to come back on Thursday, and they're going to have, win or lose the week before, I think they're going to have a fire under them. I think they're going to be ready to go, and I'm going to give it to the Vikings for Thursday.
Since I picked Seattle to beat Minnesota, I sort of agree with you. I feel after that loss, they're going to have some fire. They're going to come out fighting. I will have to say that Minnesota will top the Cardinals.
Okay, I think that wraps up NFL.
All right, now we're going to go into men's college basketball. Big shocker last night. Number 1 Kentucky falls to unranked UCLA by 10 points. And I got to tell you, I don't think anybody really saw this one coming.
Well, no. Kentucky was a team last year that almost went undefeated throughout the whole thing. I was kind of rooting for it. I think it'd be cool to see an undefeated team in basketball. You don't see that too often.
Right.
But, man, losing to an unranked team.
Yeah. But we do have to look at it a little bit. UCLA had control the whole game. Starting off, they went on like a 9-2 run. Kentucky scored their first basket and missed the next 4 or 5. It was just a dominant performance. UCLA, though, is always a good team. Have a ton of basketball national championships. So still an upset, but we can't tell right now how big of an upset it is.
So maybe you're saying that later in the season they could potentially become ranked.
Right. I think this win is definitely big for them to propel them, and we'll see how they do as the season moves on. But some games to watch this Saturday. We have number 13 Gonzaga against number 19 Arizona. This is definitely a big game for the two teams. You have Gonzaga at 5-1, Arizona 6-1. But Arizona hasn't really played anybody. Their big wins are Boise State twice and Bradley. I mean, not bad teams. Maybe normal, can show it in the tournament every once in a while, but not big name teams. And they have a loss against Providence. So definitely a little shaky there. Gonzaga, on the other hand, has a win at UConn, but a loss against Texas A&M. The loss against A&M, not a bad loss. They're still A&M's ranked, but definitely gonna be a big game between the two.
All right, and I'm thinking Gonzaga is what I'm feeling.
I got to go with Gonzaga on this one. They've played better teams so far, have proven themselves. Arizona's loss against Providence just is not a good loss. I don't think they have a chance against Gonzaga this weekend. Another big game to watch is number 18 Texas A&M and Arizona State. You have Arizona State at 5-2 with some wins over Creighton and North Carolina State.
That was interesting. As a man from Omaha, I mean, Creighton losing is a little heartbreaking. I'm always kind of that guy when March Madness rolls around. People say, "Hey, who's gonna win? Who's gonna win the tournament?" I always just say Creighton. Do I know that they're not gonna win? Yeah, but I don't care. It's great.
Yeah, and it was a shootout. It was a last-second shot that Creighton missed. They had the opportunity, but it was a shootout towards the end. They were trading baskets, and Arizona State just outlasted them. But Arizona did lose the first game of the season to Sacramento State and has also lost to Marquette. So definitely some bad losses. So it's difficult to say what they're going to be able to do this year. You have Texas A&M, like I said, 7-1 with big wins against Gonzaga and Texas. But they have a loss against Syracuse. Not a bad loss, though. Syracuse has proven that they can stand with the best this year, even with Jim Boeheim's 3-game suspension with the ACC due to some recruiting violations. But I do have to say I'm going to make a bold pick on this game. I got to go with Arizona State on this one. A&M's proven themselves a little bit, but I just think that Arizona State always pulls the upsets every year, and I think this is the one they'll pull early on in the season.
I'm going to go the safer way, and I think I'm going to say Texas A&M. I'm going to say Texas A&M. I think enough said.
All right. Well, college basketball, those are really the big games this week. A lot of teams are playing, some lower teams, but definitely going to be interesting once it comes closer to tournament time.
All right, so what's the scene right now with the MLB free agency?
All right, well, a big deal just came out. David Price got a 7-year deal for $217 million from the Red Sox. That is $31 million a year.
That is huge.
It's crazy.
And this man he's never started a game in the postseason that he's gotten a win for.
Right. He's 0-7 in playoffs with a 5.27 ERA as a starter. But in regular season over 8 years, he's 104-56 with an ERA of 3.09. So his regular season good, but postseason not so much. But with all the problems the Red Sox have, they just need an ace in their rotation. I mean, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. I think they've got some more rebuilding to do.
Do you think he's worth $200 million though?
He did have a really good 2015 season, but I don't think he's worth $31 million a year.
But he also, for the second half of that season, he had a really good Blue Jays offense behind him. He had a lot of run support, and he did pitch well. Let's not take anything away from him.
Right.
But I don't think he pitched $200 million.
Yeah, no. I mean, and if you look at it, it's bigger than the deal Kershaw got last year, which was a 7-year, $215 million deal. And then and still a bigger offer than Matt Scherzer got with the Nationals, which was another 7-year, but it was a $210 million deal. But as we can see, teams are willing to pay for their pitchers. It's definitely a big deal.
It's crazy, man. Paying $200 million. I mean, it makes for an exciting free agency for sure.
Definitely.
But at the same time, really, you're gonna spend $200 million on a single guy?
I know.
I think the Royals spent under $200 million on their entire roster.
I know, and they won.
Don't fact check that. I'm not fully sure about that.
But something else to mention is a lot of these pitchers that are getting these 7-year deals aren't panning out well. Justin Verlander's still, his deal was pretty big, and he's a good pitcher, but I don't think he's performed up to his contract deal.
I think Verlander, I think he's on his way out. You know, he's getting up there in age. He's had some injuries. I don't think he's never going to be back to the Cy Young caliber that he was. And if you're Detroit, I'd trade him. You know, it may sound harsh, but trade him, get a couple of really good prospect pitchers, like not double A necessarily. You want a quicker turnaround than that. You get some triple A guys who are on the verge of coming through. You trade to a team that's stupid enough to pick up Verlander, and I think you could actually get something going pretty good from that.
Right. You know, I think some of these contracts are getting just blown out of proportion. You know, the MLB is just throwing money at players now.
Which also it hasn't shown to be working the last couple of years. You have the Yankees with one of the highest payrolls in the league forever, and this last year they made it to the first round of the wild card. They made it to the wild card, and then they lost.
Exactly.
And the year before that, didn't even make it, did they? I don't even think they made the playoffs.
No.
And just huge contracts, and you have teams like the Royals, and they have so many good things going for them, but their player payroll is so much lower than everywhere else, and that's partly just because of the market, but they can still create a winning team out of a low paycheck.
Exactly. And I think we've seen that more with teams than the teams that are throwing a lot of money. I mean, we saw it with the Oakland A's, who had that great season. Now they're sort of falling down. I mean, teams like the Cardinals have been on top for the last couple of years. And I mean, they got a relatively high payroll, but it's not a ton. They're not paying anybody, you know, extraneous amounts of money. It'll be interesting to see if they pick up Jason Hayward, who did great things for the Cardinals, but now he's a free agent. So we'll see where that goes. And another big free agent we have out there is Johnny Cueto, which it was just reported that he turned down a 6-year, $120 million offer from the Diamondbacks. Reports are saying that he wants a contract anywhere from $140 to $160 million.
And judging from his performance, I'm not sure that I'd give it to him.
It's hard to say. I mean, he did some good things for the Royals. That's for sure.
He did some good things at times. He did it when he absolutely had to, but he never did good things when it would have just been nice. You know what I mean? Where he did perform in the clutch, and he did a great job when he needed to. But in some of those like game twos, he blew it.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. You know, and I'm not sure where he's going to go. I know that one of the big players for David Price was the Cubs. They're looking for another pitcher. Maybe they'll come for Cueto now. That Price is off, you know, out of the market. But it's really hard to say right now where he's going to go. But yeah,
maybe a National League team would be a better fit, since he spent pretty much his whole career there. And that might be part of the reason why he struggled so much in Kansas City, is that transferring over to the American League, it is tough on a pitcher who's used to only pitching to 8 players. Suddenly has to pitch to 9, and guys are a lot more power oriented for the most part in the American League than the National League. So I think that did probably play a factor, but I still, in my opinion, not worth $140 million.
Well, it's definitely some things to see. You know, a lot of these free agents are going to start going off the market, as we've already seen. So definitely to keep watching the MLB to see where these players are going and the contracts that are coming out. And as we've seen, teams are willing to put up the money. So yeah, that's all we got for the MLB.
All right, so that's all we have for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the videos. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And for American Sports Broadcasters, I'm Kenyon Hood.
I'm Brian Kirkback.
All right, see you next Friday.